Johnson. Now you got to dig deep into some of this for me. I've sort of watched you take on roles that wouldn't necessarily be considered to be cool ever since you were a freshman in high school. You've been on the PA system, doing the play-by-play and giving the updates during the football games. You've even done some of that at the basketball games too. How did that come about? And is that what you love?
That's a great question. I would say first off, I definitely do love it. I've always had a passion for sports, and then I was actually sitting in my freshman math class, Mr. Eaton's geometry class, and I hear an announcement. It comes over the intercom and it says, the athletic director is looking for someone to announce the football games. And so I thought, hey, you know, if they need somebody, I may as well go down there and put my name in. And so I went down to the counselor's office and told them. I got an interview about a week later with Mr. Jones, the athletic director, and he talked to me for about 30 minutes or so, and then he had me send him a clip of me announcing a game. So I chose the Notre Dame-Texas game. So I'm a huge Texas fan, you know that.
I do. I'm standing right here.
That's right. And then after that,
a house divided.
Definitely a house divided. He had me announce a middle school football game. So I announced that middle school football game Thursday. We had a game that next day. He called me about 12:30 and said, hey, you have the job. You want to announce tonight? And so I showed up, did it. He told me I did a great job, and after that, it just went on. So I did the football that year, and then he asked me to do basketball, so I did basketball. And ever since then, football and basketball, and a little bit of soccer.
There you go. Now, were you nerved up at all, or was it just anxious to get out there and get it done?
So I would say that first game there was a very strange sense of calm. Like, I was nervous. I was a 14-year-old freshman with a very squeaky voice, you know what I'm saying?
I remember that.
Over the PA. I mean, you heard it.
You got a little bass now.
A little bit, not much, but a little bit.
Right.
There were definitely a little bit of nerves, but I loved what I was doing. I was looking at the game and talking about it. And that's something that I've seen and heard throughout my life. I've always watched sports, especially football.
For sure.
And so I've been able to take away a lot of what I've heard from, you know, Kirk Herbstreit or Chris Fowler and those guys. And obviously it's a different thing, but to apply that to my announcing.
For sure. Now, when you said interview, what did the interview process look like for something like this, especially being a kid so young at that time?
Right. I mean, he really just asked me, and obviously this was 4 years ago, so it's hard for me to remember the exact questions, but really just why I wanted to do it, how I felt I would, you know, how I would fit the role, what I would do to make it my own. And so I just answered those honestly, told him about my passion for sports and for speaking. I always have loved public speaking, so I thought it was a good match for me.
Now, that's something that I look at to be rare from kids, because most of them, although they may be well-versed, they may be good readers and all of that, there's just something about standing in front of the masses and a bunch of eyes looking back at you. For you to elect that and to say, hey, this is something I've always liked to do, that seems like a rarity. So what I'm trying to ask is, do you know whether there was anybody else in line for this gig or just you?
I do. There was one other person to my knowledge. There may have been more, but at least one.
Right.
And so I don't know why I was chosen, why I was selected, but I guess that Mr. Jones just thought I would do a better job.
The man. And then you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you did the Notre Dame Texas game. Did you recorded yourself? Is that how that
I did. So the funny part is I was actually at that game. So I was there at the game, but what I did is I went home and I just pulled it up on YouTube, recorded it, and did a voiceover.
The whole game?
No, just a couple of minutes of it.
Okay.
Not the whole game, just because that would have been too much, honestly. He just wanted me to do a couple of minutes, couple of drives. So that's what I sent in to him, and I guess he liked it.
The man with the plan. So I guess it gets easier and easier the more you do it.
Definitely.
Now, I'm going to ask you to see if you can tap back into some of your memory bank. Have you ever been on the job, right, whether it's basketball or soccer or football, and you have to do some ad-libbing or some troubleshooting along the way? Now, you've been in that press box more than I have. I'm not necessarily sure what types of things could go wrong or what miscalculations could occur. But have you been in some spots where you kind of had to wing some things?
I would say so. For a quick example, a couple of weeks ago at our first home football game, someone came up and said, we have a missing kid. Or actually, it was that we had a kid and we had found him and we're missing his grandma. And so I have the missing kid announcement. I don't have the missing grandma announcement, if that makes sense.
For sure, yeah, absolutely.
So I had to sit there and think for, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and think about what exactly I was going to say. And so that was tough.
Did it come out right?
It did. I mean, I thought so.Maybe the people in attendance didn't, but I thought so.
Yeah.
I just tried to make it sound very urgent and that there was a kid down here without his grandma,
So I'm assuming you guys got to the bottom of that.
We found the kid. We found the grandma.
Found the grandpa. So the kid was on point, the grown-up was missing.
Exactly.
Man. Okay, now you talked about your love for sports. How far back does that go? Tell me about your days as an athlete, because if I remember correctly, you used to play some ball.
I did, yes sir. I started playing baseball actually when I was 5 years old. And I played that all the way through 7th grade. I played football in middle school and then 9th grade. And then basketball, let's see, I think I played in middle school, and that was it. My days stopped after 8th grade.
Your days of athletics completely?
Well, I played football in 9th grade, but my days of basketball stopped in 8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, after your 9th grade year of football, why did you decide to be done with it? Or did you take other interests in other areas, or were you just kind of reading some handwriting on the wall? How did that?
Well, I'd say a little bit of both. Now, you look at me, I don't look like the most athletic guy, and that's a true indication of my actual athleticism. So, you know, that's definitely a big piece of it, is I don't have that skill set. I'm not cut out for that.
Gotcha.
But honestly, more so than that, because I do love playing football. Even if I'm not on the field, even if I'm not playing, you know, still being out there with the team and getting to practice, be a part of something, that's awesome. But more so than that, for me it was, I got to announce that 9th grade year because I was playing freshman football. So I didn't have to be out there suited up on Friday nights. But when I turned into a 9th grade, or a 10th grader, when I turned into a sophomore, if I was playing football, I had to be on the sidelines, and I would have had to give up that announcing role. And I really started to enjoy it, and at that time I thought that's what I wanted to do with my future. And I've kind of changed on that, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later.
Absolutely.
I just really had to make a choice there, and I chose to go with that because I thought I was more well-versed for that role.
Right. Now, were you still allowed to be a part of the program in some capacity? Although, because you're still affiliated in by hook or by crook by being the announcer,
Right.
But maybe not immersed in the day-to-day grind of the on the field work. So I guess what I'm asking is, with you being a part of the program and close to it, did that help you in terms of preparing for your roles on Friday night, knowing some information, maybe not too much to overexpose, but knowing enough to elaborate on some things?
Definitely, that was very helpful. I mean, I knew the offense. I was a quarterback, not a very good one, but I was a quarterback.
You better one than me.
Well, maybe so. So I knew the offense a little bit. That was helpful.
Right.
And it was funny because I'd sit up there and I'd be sitting next to my sound guy and I'd say, you know, they're going to run this play and they run that play. And I was like, you know what? I know the plays that they're calling, you know. I'm not saying that happened every time, but that was definitely helpful. And then just knowing those guys, because I was at practice with them every day. And I was seeing what they were doing in practice, so I got to know them.
For sure.
So I didn't have to look at the roster. I could just say, oh, okay, that's whoever that may be, you know.
Knew everybody's names and numbers and all that.
Exactly.
Now, with you taking such a prestigious role in the school building, I know. Well, I don't know, but let me ask: was it tough for you to still maintain that status as I'm still one of the guys? I'm still just a regular student like the rest of them. Because I know some of your peers probably put you on some little proverbial pedestal. How did you stay off of that?
It's been tough, honestly. It's tough to be relatable in some aspects because I'm not doing the usual thing.
Right.
I'm not a part of the 55-member team. You know, I'm doing something that only I'm doing.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand what goes on with that. Like, we've started with basketball games with spotlights and the lights off and all these crazy things. And I know what goes on with that, but they don't. And so if they were on my team in that, like if we were a part of a team that was going after that, we could have some camaraderie there and get close. But I definitely miss out on that. So I would say, yes, it is tough for me to relate to them, but I've just tried to stay humble always. I mean, we walk in, what do you say? The big man on campus?
Big man on campus.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think I'm the big man on
that.
campus, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just remaining humble through everything because someone else could announce, someone else could do those things. It's not like it's just me. And to me, that's always been the big goals. It's always been about the team.
For sure.
It's always been about hyping up the players for the basketball games and trying to play good music or, you know, trying to play an intro video for the football team and trying to make sure that they are happy, excited, and that'll help their performance.
Absolutely. And you know, another thing, whenever I say big man on campus, of course I was joking with you.
Yeah.
But what made me think about that is I can remember back in my days being a student in high school, whoever the student was on the intercom doing the allegiance every day, the moment of silence, that voice was synonymous with that building. And it just so happened that I was that dude. You see what I'm saying? So I said, I gotta come talk to my boy Tobias, right?
I see what you're saying.
Now, we're gonna pivot just a little bit.
Okay.
Talk to me about student council. You played a big role in a lot of the goings on campus at Piedmont High School. You're a big voice and a big face as far as representation of the student body and beyond. So you just told me. Dive into that for me. What all do you do?
Well, just on the Piedmont school end, then we can get into the state end if that's okay with you.
I'm riding with you.
I'm a part of a great team. I mean, we have a fantastic student council program led by Mrs. Antoine, and so this is my 4th year in the program. I'm now president, and I've been able to take on some new leadership roles with that, to do some great things and work with the student council kids. But although I may be the face of student council, it's obviously not just me. You know,
Right.
it's those student council kids. It's the six of us staying up at the stadium until 12:30, running through the assembly. You know, so I may be the recognizable face, but it's really a group effort, and I just try to unify the group and make sure we're going in the right direction.
Right. From a particular standpoint, what things, if you could give us a few, that student council is responsible for?
So just recently we got done with homecoming.
Right.
That was our game on Friday. So we had the assembly for that. As I was talking about, we had the homecoming. We had a Thursday night event. So we're responsible for all of that. We're over the execution, the planning, what goes on at those events. So that takes up a lot of our time in the fall. We're over winter formal, which is our dance in December. And then in the spring, you know, it's Duck Week season. You know, we have our week-long philanthropy week. We raise over $100,000 every year, and that's really, I don't want to say student council's baby, because it's really Piedmont's baby at this point.
Right.
It's really a community event, but student council is ultimately responsible for those events that go on.
Absolutely. And you slowly took me there to Duck Week, because I definitely want to talk about that. I think that's one of the coolest things that I've ever heard of and been a part of. Duck Week, Duck, the word DUCK stands for Doing Unselfish
Charities
for Kids. Okay. First of all, when, where, and how did that begin? And how in the world have y'all been able to maintain it for this long? Now, obviously, it precedes both of us.
Right.
You know, it's been in the works for umpteen years, but it's a beautiful thing. Tell me about it. How?
Well, I don't have a deep knowledge of how it came into existence, but I can tell you that in 2004, the student council kids at Piedmont came to Mrs. Antoine, and they wanted to create a philanthropy week. Now, we're not the first one to do this. Memorial has one, North has one. A lot of the schools around the metro area and up in Tulsa all have these philanthropy weeks. So to my knowledge, they had heard of those and wanted to do something similar at Piedmont. And I think they had a kid with some pretty severe medical needs. So they raised a couple $1,000s. It was a big success that year. And that was 2004. Now we're to 2019. So last year was our 16th year. And we raised $131,000. So we've seen it grow from a couple $1,000s and 15 student council kids to the entire community of Piedmont and over $100,000. But as you said, we both came into this way after the fact. I was lucky enough to come into an established program and to try to grow the program, but I didn't have to start it,
Couple of spoilers, perhaps, on what we look forward to in the months to come, this coming Duck Week season?
I really wish I could spoil it, but I can't. I don't have the idea yet. We're actually going to decide that in the next couple of weeks, but I have a general idea of where we're trending.
Okay. And I know it's going to be epic like it always is.
Of course.
Great big celebration, man, and it's all inclusive. That's what I love about it. You all have found a way to include the student body, even the cool kids that don't really like to participate in much. They're out there having a good time and supporting the cause, whether they know it or not.
Well, yeah, and we have the assembly on Monday, talent show on Friday, and then throughout the week we have the student versus faculty basketball game, dodgeball. Last year we had a dunk contest.
There you go.
So we're doing some things to try to reach all types of kids.
Yeah, man.
Not just the sports kids, not just the band kids, not the mathletes, if you want to call them that.
Athletes, I like
To
that.
reach all types of kids.
Right, all inclusive, baby. Gotta keep that one going. You're a coach's kid, right?
Yes, sir.
Your dad, Kennedy Johnson, I worked for him whenever I was out here at Piedmont. Really good dude. But we would kick it around a lot, and he would talk to me about his journey from being a coach at the collegiate level all the way into his administrative role in education now. I know you were a much younger kid during the days when he was still coaching. How was it being immersed in sports just as daddy's little partner, little ride or die partner? And did you all bounce around a lot? Because I know that coaching grind can be a bit of a grind when it comes to being a journeyman.
Yeah. I wouldn't say we bounced around a lot.
Okay.
He started his coaching tenure, if you want to call it that, in Yukon. So at that time, we actually lived in Weatherford, and he'd make that drive every day. But I was really young, 1 or 2 years old.
Right.
And then we moved to Yukon, and he got the job at Piedmont 2004, I believe.
Okay.
And he was here for 6 years, and then at SMU, as you said. So we were always right here in the metro area. So I wouldn't say we bounced around a lot, but it was definitely a very unique upbringing.
Yeah.
I mean, most of my friends didn't grow up with coaches
Right.
as dads, you know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
I would say I got a couple of things from that. One of those things being my very competitive nature. I'm a very competitive person.
Never heard you say that, but
Well,
I could have attached
you
it.
haven't seen me in competition because
True that.
you never coached me or anything like that. But
Sure.
I get that. I think just inherently from him, but also growing up around sports
Right.
and being around those athletes. Now, I don't want to say it was nerve-wracking, but it was weird when I was 7 years old to walk into a room of seniors in high school, you know. It was a different experience, but I think that helped with my communication skills, my ability to speak with people, and may have helped me develop into what I am today in terms of a public speaker and the announcer role and everything like that.
He also told me that you all would go and chase whatever the high school game of the week was every Friday. He didn't say exactly what era, but I know I'm kind of lumping it in there together.
Yeah.
How was that, man? Were y'all just sitting around like two talking heads, bouncing the game off each other?
Yeah, because he instilled all of his football knowledge into me.
There you go.
Now, I want to claim that I know more than him. I don't. I'm just going to have to say, you know.
You still got a couple of blocks on you.
We had, do what?
He's still a couple of blocks older than you.
A couple. A couple.
A couple.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to talk football with him, but more so than that, just the memories.
For sure.
There was a span in there where he was at Crooked Oak Elementary School in OKC.
Sure.
And so during that era, we were able to go to games around the state because he didn't have to go to a game Friday night. And so I remember those memories very fondly. Not even the football discussions per se, but just more so hanging out with him and going to games and being there. You know what I'm saying?
That's a beautiful thing. And you're the oldest of four. Man, how is that having three siblings? I only have one, you know what I mean? But I am the oldest, so I relate to you on that level. But there are four of you guys. You got one sister, she's the baby, and then you got your two bros in the middle, and one of them is doing this thing, wrestling and running cross country. Man, what's that? What's a normal day in the Johnson household, man? How's that?
A normal day. By the time I wake up, they're all gone. So
I'm a bad senior. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I still have school at first hour at 7:50.
Okay.
So I take Titus to school, who is my 14-year-old brother.
Right.
We go to school together, which has been a good experience for us to bond and hang out in those mornings.
Y'all get along?
We do.
Okay.
I mean, we butt heads like all brothers do, you know.
For sure.
But it's been a good experience.
Who's the best athlete in the family?
Who's the better athlete?
Who's the best athlete in the family?
I mean, he couldn't beat me in anything one-on-one.
Right,
I'm so faster than him, so
Yeah.
I'd still say me. But
Still
my dad could take both of us, if we're being honest.
Hey, no, he doesn't count. You
Just among the siblings.
Right.
And then usually I have activities in the nighttime. So I'm very rarely at home for dinner or bedtime for the kids. And so I don't see them very much, but I try to make time to go home and hang out with them. Like last night I was play boxing with Talib. You know, we were in the living room. He wanted to listen to Rocky music and put on his boxing gloves. He's into Rocky these days. So, you know, I still try to make time to hang out with him because I know that I'm going to leave next August and I'm going to be gone. And they're going to remember 8 or 9 years of me, and that's all they're going to have.
Right.
You know, they're going to have me coming home 6 times a year, so, you know, whatever that may be, but that's what they're going to have. So I really try to instill, I don't want to say values, like I'm not trying to teach them anything, but just trying to be with them and hang out with them, that sort of thing.
Big bro. Now, there's one person we haven't talked about. We got to talk about Mom, man.
We do.
Yeah, let me tell you something. She's one of the sweetest spirits that I've met, particularly since the time I was working here in Piedmont. She in the same mood all the time. Even if she wasn't, she was still that way toward me.
Yeah.
Man, how's your relationship with Mom, man?
I'd say it's a fantastic relationship. We get along great. Now, she doesn't always have that great mood with me that she has with you. You know that.
Fair enough, yeah.
But
And
she's,
you know how to turn it on and off.
Yeah. She's great. I mean, she's super sweet, always there for me, always trying to help and make my life better, and she's just awesome.
Salute to Mom and Dad, bros and baby sis. Something else about you that I think is pretty, I won't say fascinating, but, well, you know, let's just say it, fascinating. Because as a teenager, for me, I remember like going through this phase where I thought I wanted to work, you know what I mean? But I quickly pivoted from that.
Yeah.
But you mow lawns, and I can remember talking to your dad at one time. He told me that he was coming up with a number that you were gonna have to bring to the table when it was time to buy your first vehicle. Man, how has that shaped or contributed to your character, being given some responsibility?
When I was 10 years old, I started mowing with my dad.
Right.
He started the mowing company, and I just started helping. It was one of those things, and he'd pay me, and he'd force me to save. I think at that time it was like 50% of what I made, or something.
Oh, right down the middle. Huh?
Yeah, maybe it was 40, but it was somewhere right along the middle. And then as I got older, it was 60, and it was 70. And so I mowed all the way up until I was 16, and I still mow today.
Right.
But when I was 16, I had to pay for half of my first car. So at that point, I had accumulated a couple $1,000s, and so they matched that, and I got to buy my first car with that.
What was it?
A Hyundai Elantra.
There you go.
Silver one.
What year?
2015.
Oh yeah, man. You all right? So I'm guessing you still got that, right?
I do.
Upgraded.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. I do.
Man,
So, I think that one of the biggest reasons my dad did that with me and is still doing that with my brother is to instill that work ethic in us.
Sure.
And you said, you were a teenager, you wanted to work for a little bit and then didn't want to. And I'm not going to say I always want to go mow lawns because it's not always fun, but
Sure.
I have definitely received that work ethic from him. And that's applied to everything. That applies to announcing, that applies to student council, that applies to school, That's a universal character trait that I can use for anything.
Right. Speaking of going back to announcing, do you have a ritual or certain practices that you do before you get on that microphone every time, or do you just say, "Man, I got this, give me the mic"?
No, I'm a very scheduled person. I like to have things organized, and I like to, not to say follow rituals per se, but I like to do certain things.
I got you.
So a couple of things I have to do before every single, let's just say basketball game.
Okay.
So I have to email the boys and girls basketball coach for the opposing team to get the roster. And then I come up here with my production crew guys and we run through the spotlights and the lights and all of that stuff. We have to rehearse when to turn the lights out, when they're going to flip those spotlights on, how they're going to move them,
All the details.
all the production details.
I love that. Now, how far in advance do you reach out to those opposing coaches? Are we talking the day before or early
I give
top
them
of
a
the week? Okay.
Yeah, so if we have a game Thursday night, I try to reach out by Monday.
Makes sense.
But I do that, and then we started doing national anthem performers. So I find those people, and then I reach out to them, schedule a time to come up here with them, run through, do a sound check. So we've had electric guitar, we've had people singing, just some pretty cool things to try to improve our game day atmosphere.
Okay.
So I do all of those things, and then I write my scripts for announcing. And then actual game day things, I print it all out. I make sure I have it on paper just in case my computer crashes or goes out or dies.
That's definitely the best way to go because you don't know you need it until you
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's better to have it and not need it as opposed to needing and not having it. That's one of those things. Life after high school. You're a senior. You got, what is it? What's October almost? We're going to round up and say it's October. You got roughly a half a year left and then you're on to bigger and better things.
Yes,
Number one, have you decided where you want to go to school? And number two, what are you wanting to venture into as far as your career path goes?
Well, I haven't decided exactly where I want to go yet. I'm applying to Harvard early, and then I'm also applying to Georgetown, Columbia, Yale, Dartmouth, Duke, and Notre Dame. Mostly for my dad, but also because I want to apply there and hopefully get in.
All right.
So I'd say my number one right now is probably Harvard, but I'm not set on that.
Man, brother, sharp as a blade, and that's not. I was shocked to hear you say that because I hadn't heard that come out of your mouth before. But I always known that you've been an outstanding student, so you'll be able to go where you want to go.
I hope so.
Now, Lord willing, what do you want to get into?
I plan to major in political science and economics. Maybe double major, maybe a political science major with an economics minor. But graduate in 4 years and then go to Yale Law School and get my Juris Doctor. And then I hope to clerk for the Supreme Court for a year. And then there's a nonprofit religious liberty firm in DC called the Beckett Firm.
Right.
So I want to work there for 5-10 years and try to help people in exercising their rights and their liberties, their religious liberties. And then after that, I want to go into public service. So maybe that's the judiciary, maybe that's politics and public service, but just public service in some way.
So I definitely know that you're not winging it. You've obviously given this quite a bit of thought. Now, one thing I'm gonna ask you, and I guess you can call it advice, whatever you want to call it. Now, when you set out goals, we all try to make our path as well. We're gonna have to take some detours. Maybe have to take a different road. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to change the destination, but we may have to take some stops along the way that we didn't necessarily see coming. And it's rough to kind of make yourself, let me be here for as long as I have to be here and be enriched however I can be enriched and get what I can get. You ready for that? You ready to make those adjustments if you think you need to?
I would say so. I think that I've chosen, and obviously I'm not tied down into this plan. I can still make changes, but with the path that I'm currently thinking about going, I can go into politics, which I have a passion for public service and for making our country and state a better place. I can go into the judiciary. I can be a lawyer. I can be a sports agent if I wanted to. Sports is a passion of mine, and with a law degree, I could go and represent some big-time athletes and help them get good deals. I would never be an agent for people like, I don't know, Antonio. Something like that. But
man, he's making quite
the better athletes, you know what I'm saying?
Athletes. For real. I like the way. And I'm glad you circled back to sports. Tell me about the landscape of Piedmont sports. So, everything you know from right off the top of your head, how's football doing right now? How's softball doing right now? How's cross country doing right now? How's volleyball doing right now? What's the lay of the land, brother? I've been off the grid.
All right, let's start out with football. Okay. So we played week 1 El Reno. They beat us by, I want to say a touchdown, maybe two. We have this new triple option offense.
Okay.
So we brought in Jeff Hall, who's the offensive coordinator at UConn,
Right.
and a couple of guys off that UConn staff. And so we have like 14 football coaches now. And so they've really been able to instill that flexible and triple offense system. And the players absolutely love the coaching staff.
There you go.
And it's not one of those things where the coaching staff is not making them do anything and just letting them get away with, slacking off and all of those things.
Right.
They love them because they're good guys and they care about them. They hold them accountable, but I want to say they love them too, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And
Different
so,
levels of love. Sometimes
yeah,
we need it
exactly.
tough. Sometimes we need this right here.
and I think those guys really appreciate that being held accountable. So we lost week 1, and then we went on the road to Weatherford and won. And then this past week, we beat Noble at home 28-6, which was a huge win.
Right.
Last year, we lost to Noble 47-7 on their home turf. So to come back around like that, it was a huge win.
I'd say quite the turn.
Now, this next week, we have to head up to Guthrie, and that's a big game because Guthrie is usually at that 3 spot in our district. You know, we're in that district with Carl Albert and Bishop McGinnis. So they usually have those top 2 spots locked up. Not that we couldn't break into that, but that's tough.
Yeah, usually they've been the class.
Exactly. I mean, we're in the toughest district in 5A, but if we can break into that 3rd spot, that could really help our playoff chances.
Okay.
So I'd say that's the lay of the land for football.
Sure.
Just got back from softball senior night, as I was telling you. They're having a fantastic season.
Right.
They were winning like 12-0 when I left, so they were dominating.
They weren't working by the hour then.
Yeah. I think they have 14 or 16 seniors, so this is really the year. This is the year they're going to have to make some noise at the state tournament. They're going to have to hopefully win a state championship.
Yeah.
My sophomore year, I think you were still here. They got 2nd at state. They lost to Carl Albert, and then last year they got 4th, I want to say.
Right.
They lost in the semifinal round. So
They've been hovering.
they have, and so this year maybe they can get to that final game and pull off a win.
For sure.
I really hope so.
Good. What my man Coach Beck and them doing out there with cross country, you know? I mean, shout out to Beck.
Yeah, Coach Beck, he's great. Last year, they won that state championship.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I sat him down just like this too.
Oh,
We were
really?
on the phone. But
Okay.
I had to talk to the champ.
Of course. You went from him to me. Wow.
Yeah,
I feel honored.
It's parallel.
Same podcast. It's
Parallel.
Kelly Beck.
It's parallel.
Wow.
You're on your way.
So they won that last year as the greatest 5A boys team in the history of Oklahoma cross country. Had the best time, lowest score, I guess it is, with the way that cross country is scored.
Gotcha.
And they lost their 3 top runners. But preliminary indications from this year show that they're going to be really, really good. 5A rankings were released a couple of days ago, and they were 1st in the state. So I really think that boys cross country they have a chance to repeat, which would be awesome. We've only had 1 repeat state champion team in the history of Piedmont schools.
That was all together.
Yes, and not including bands, but
okay. Well,
athletics.
Now, see, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into that.
I think they are, but proceed.
Let's say OSSAA sports, because they are OBA, Oklahoma Band Association. So OSSAA sports, Piedmont has only had 1 back-to-back champion, and that was my dad with girls track in 2009-2010. So
I remember hearing
that would be paramount for them to be able to repeat, and that just shows how great of a job Coach Beck has done with that program.
Yeah.
He's really, I don't want to say he's turned it around, because I don't know how it was before my time. When I came in, he was the coach, but we have so many cross-country runners now. We have a program. We have a program that goes out and wins meets, beats 6A teams, and that's really respectable. Our girls program, I think, got 2nd or 3rd in our most recent meet, so we're right up there near the top. We got 3rd at state last year, so
Yeah.
I think 3rd. It may have been 2nd, but we were right up there. So within striking distance, maybe we capitalized this year.
That's way more than relevant, right?
Yeah,
there,
exactly. Past the point of relevance. Other fall sports, we have volleyball. I've only been able to make a couple of games this year, but they have a new head coach. It was Coach Patton. I don't know if she was here when you were
She
here.
was. Coach Steffi Patton.
Coach Steffi Patton. She's not the coach anymore. It's Coach Williams.
Okay.
I don't know much about their season. I think they're hovering around 500, to the best of my knowledge. So.
Gotcha. There's not enough hours in a day for old Tobias Johnson. Got to be everywhere at one time. Now, I got a couple more things to throw at you. I know you're a busy guy. What we haven't talked about is how it was, just your accolades aside and your positions aside, as a kid, being in the building under your dad's instruction as the head principal for the first 3 years of your high school career. What type of scrutiny were you under during that time? How'd you handle it?
Well, I don't know if you knew this or not, but when I was in middle school, he was also the principal.
I did.
So
I brought it back.
I went through 2 years of middle school, and then I went through 3 years of high school. So let me split those up and talk about the middle school first. The middle school, I'm gonna.
They're weird. But I love
They're weird, definitely weird, and I'm sure I was one of those kids. But
Me too. Me too.
all of us were, right? I went through, and I wasn't the greatest athlete, but I still tried out for sports teams, and I made the basketball team a couple of times, and so that was cool for me. But I received a lot of, I don't want to say hate, because it wasn't hate, but it was just pushback, and you know how it is. You only made it because your dad's the principal, and those sorts of things.
Never mind the work you put in, but whatever.
Yeah, well, again, I was not the greatest athlete, but you know, Coach Carr thought I deserved to make the team. Coach Whiteman thought so I made the team.
Right.
And so that was hard to deal with at that age because I didn't reach that level of maturity where I could just block it out.
Right.
As for my academic accolades and those things that I achieved in middle school, that was I never really doubted that. You know, I knew that I was deserving of those things, and so I still received pushback on those, but it didn't bother me the way that the athletic accolades did.
Right.
When I got to high school, though, it really, I don't want to say it was cut off, but it got substantially better. Just because those kids were more mature, and a lot of them stopped caring, honestly.
Right.
And now that I wasn't playing sports, I was just doing those leadership and academic things. And I don't want to say they knew I was deserving, but I think they could see that I was getting things that I should have been getting, if you know what I'm saying.
This guy basically saying this kid's got some credibility now. We go ahead and give it up to him. Well, did you ever have a run-in of any sort to where, hey, you may have gotten out of pocket and did some regular kid stuff, and then your dad had to, switch hats on you?
No.
No?
Never
Okay,
at
good.
school. I mean, there were a couple times when I maybe didn't get a good enough grade on a test or a paper, so we had to sit me down that way. But no, there hasn't been anything where
A disciplinary issue?
No, nothing.
That's
And I wouldn't say that's because he's the principal, because that's just how I was raised,
Yeah, I can tell.
That's because he raised me that way and my mom raised me that way, not because I know if I get in trouble, I'm going to his office.
There you go. Here's what I want to finish with, man. I always throw this particular segment at my guests. I call it all due disrespect, right? And what I mean is, you're a sports guy. If you can think back to any contest, all right, in any sport here in Piedmont where I'm going to put us all together, where we ended up losing to an opponent that we had no business losing to. You know what I mean? Maybe they were inferior or we were just sleepwalking, but we showed up and we didn't get it done. And if we could go back, we owed that team one because they knew they couldn't beat us.
Yeah.
Which sport win?
That's a tough question.
I know it. That's why I gave it to you.
I'd be interested to hear your answer, honestly.
Well, here's what I did. I only have 2 years under my belt to speak from. So if I would do that, I would have to look into my basketball tenure here. The one that I really want back, and I can't necessarily say we should have won, but I felt like we were close until the latter part of the fourth quarter. That would have been February 2017. We're in the area consolation game, right? We're playing against Shawnee.
Okay, Shawnee.
With a chance to make it to the state tournament. We had just beaten Lawton MacArthur the night before, and they had owned us in the season, so that felt great, emotional victory and everything. And we were deadlocked, tied at 18. It was not a very flattering game for the first half in that Shawnee game, but we were within reach because they were a little more talented and more experienced. So we figured we got a chance. But the wheels ended up falling off the wagon toward the end of that third quarter. They got a double-digit lead on us, and we just didn't have that other gear to go to.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, somebody else can tell you differently, I felt like our core group at that point, they hadn't been in enough battles yet. That was the first go-around. So had that been a year later maybe, and we had some experience to reach back to, and we're in that same boat, maybe it finishes a little different. So, but that's how I know we're harder on ourselves than anybody else is, because I had more good days than bad in that regard, but I always think about that one.
And at that point, that core group of guys,
Sophomores.
Yeah, exactly. Hunter, Dylan, Jalen, and Rilo, they were all sophomores, so they weren't battle tested. You're right.
But we put those big old shoes on and said, man, go ahead and take those legs, see what you can bring. But is there one you have, or did I have to? I did my part.
Yeah.
What's up, big baby?
I would say, I don't remember what year it was. It would have to be, it was my sophomore year.
All right.
We were playing El Reno at home in football.
Okay.
And I think we fumbled the ball 6 times. We had 6 turnovers that game. And we still only lost by a couple scores, I want to say. Maybe 1 score. But it was a very close game. And honestly, if we didn't turn the ball over like that, we win.
Just cut the turnover down in half, maybe. You still be
maybe 1 less, you still win the game. But that was one of those where, as you said, you have no business losing at all, but especially like that.
Right. That's how you know. That's when we say stuff like what? You beat yourselves.
Exactly.
Tobias, I appreciate you taking time, my man.
It was great visiting with you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well wishes on everything moving forward, and I'll be watching. I got your number so you can't run from me.
Wouldn't plan on it anyway.
Yes, sir. Smooth.